All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coach Krisler's Combos. If you are new here, all we do is have a conversation with our guest, who today is Heather, and we talk about our health journey and just how functional medicine has helped along the way. So, Heather, before we get to your health journey, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, I'm Heather Roth. I am in Texas. I'm right outside of Dallas. I was born and raised in the Dallas area, so I'm a native Texan. I'm married and I have two kids, a 17-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter who keep me on my toes. They keep me really busy.
Yeah,
So
do that.
and I'm a functional medicine certified health coach.
Awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about first why you decided to become a health coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's been a really long journey, I guess you would say. I spent a good majority of my life in my, I would say, early teen years through my college years. I suffered with stomach issues all the time, horrible stomach aches, digestive issues. My mom took me to the doctors. I was often told that it was more like in my head. Didn't actually have GI issues. There wasn't anything wrong with me. So I suffered with it for years.
Mm.
And then, and I've just muddled through it. But about 3 years ago, I received the news that I had breast cancer. And that one kind of hit me pretty hard. And at that point in time, I was living a lifestyle that was not a healthy lifestyle. I was eating out a lot. My husband was traveling a lot for business. So our dinners consisted a lot of fast food, drive-throughs, order in, whatever we could do that was fast and easy. So I just was not leading a healthy lifestyle. But when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was told that it was estrogen positive breast cancer, which my mother had actually been diagnosed with the same type of breast cancer 2 years prior to me. Neither one of us had any genes or gene markers. And when I inquired about it, I was basically told, oh, bad luck. Like,
Right.
Sorry, like lots of people get breast cancer. So this bad luck. But I didn't like that answer. I didn't like that answer at all. So I started doing a lot of research, and that just kind of started my health journey. And the first thing that I did was I eliminated sugar from my diet. And I was what I would call a sugaraholic. I mean, I was somebody who my breakfast was a dessert for the most part. I always had a dessert after a meal. But I had read that sugar fed cancer. So the first thing I did was eliminated all sugars. And I found when I did that my stomach issues started to go away, but not completely, but it was a lot better.
Right.
And I was like,
isn't
oh
that interesting? You happened upon this information. You thought, you know what, I'm going to apply this to myself, thinking it's really only your focus was on the cancer. And yet, because the rest of your body is attached, it had that effect. Right. Yeah.
Yes. It was amazing. I was like, oh, I am starting to feel better. But I was not 100% in the digestive area. And I then started this whole journey of, I cleaned up everything in my household, from my cleaning agents, laundry detergents, shampoos, body washes, anything that went on my body, around my body, or near my body. I started moving towards healthier versions without all the chemicals and things like that in it. And I came across a functional medicine doctor, or I had started to hear about functional medicine doctors. And I decided I'm going to call that functional medicine doctor to see about what's going on with my gut. And ultimately, my goal was to get as healthy as I could so that I kept cancer away. And
so is this doctor somebody that was local to you, or was it somebody that was in a different state?
She was local. She was local. I guess in my research, I started listening to lots of Zooms and things like that, and or not Zooms, podcasts and things. And I started hearing about functional medicine and functional medicine doctors and how they get to the root cause. And I thought maybe that's what I need to do so that I can make sure I get to the bottom of not only my gut issues, but they had also put me on a medicine for my cancer that was causing me a lot of side effects. And I didn't like the side effects I was having. And I was again told, sorry, tough it up. You have to take this medicine for at least 5, maybe 8 years. And it could cause another form of cancer, but we don't know when that will happen. But you need to. So I didn't like that answer either. So when I saw this new functional medicine doctor, she suggested I do an elimination diet to further investigate, what was bothering me in my digestive system. So we pulled out, all of the other things, offending items, gluten, dairy, caffeine, all of that.
The typical things that people struggle with or cause, the high inflammation and things like that. Yeah.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that, again, this all started with a cancer diagnosis and seeking, answers because what you were receiving wasn't good. And it kind of led you down the road of, kind of pulling in and looking at some other things in your life as well. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey. It's amazing. Once I pulled out some of these other offending agents, all of a sudden, like you said, inflammatory type agents, all of a sudden, my rings on my finger, move around now. They're not completely swollen. It got to the point where I had a hard time getting rings off my fingers. So that is kind of where it all started. But what really got me into the health coaching was I was assigned to a health coach to work with on a weekly basis. In my elimination diet, I met with her every week, talked with her about what I was going through, how I was handling it. And it lit a fire in me. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so went back to school and then got my certification. So here I am.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I completely agree with, when you are on the receiving end of the coaching, which, as you know, because we went through the same program, that's a big part of the program is applying what you're learning and constantly giving and receiving coaching. And when you're on the receiving end, you're like, oh, I like this. I like the accountability. I like the information. I like the questions that are being asked and, the things that the self-discovery and all of the different things that you receive. So then that sparks something in you and you're like, yeah, that's it. I need to go for that.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know that I could have done the elimination diet, without her. Had it been, I guess like in a traditional medicine model, they told me you probably need to take out gluten and dairy out of your diet. It would have been very difficult, I think, to do. I'd have been like, okay, sure, whatever, it was a lot. It made it an easier process to know that I had somebody to talk to and even just, even sometimes just vent when, I was having people in family who didn't understand or whatever, so but ultimately, it made me feel so much better that it really, seeing the results that I got and seeing that my stomach issues that I'd been suffering from since I was a preteen went away. The plus side was I lost weight, a little bit, not a lot, but I lost some weight in that process. And it lit a fire under me that I thought, gosh, if there are other people out there, which I know there are, that are suffering and going through different health issues, and they're just given another prescription and their doctor just kind of sends them on their way and brushes them off, or maybe sometimes doesn't even really listen to them. Sometimes, I just thought if I could help one person, one person, that would be an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I want to take a step back and look at or talk a little bit about your youth and how you were dealing with these stomach and digestive issues. So what kinds of things were you dealing with as a young person, as you were going through all of this?
Yeah, a lot of horrible stomach aches. They often mimicked, and looking back now, I know really what they were. They were probably sugar cravings, because I grew up eating Twinkies and Ding Dongs and all of that
Sugary
stuff.
cereals. Yeah.
Yeah, sugary cereals and all of that.
Yeah.
I would get these horrible what felt like hunger pains, but I'd get them after I ate. And it was, and so I would go back and try to eat something. And often, again, it was those sugary things.
Right.
And I would end up a lot of times on the floor in my bedroom in a ball, or at night in a ball, trying to relieve my stomach ache as best I could. I would often get diarrhea, where I would have to run to a restroom as fast as I could. I was not on the constipated side of it. Mine was the diarrhea side. So needless to say, a lot of times there were times when if I started to feel my stomach getting a little gurgly, I'd be like, I don't know that I can go anywhere because I may have to use the bathroom.
Right.
And
so it was affecting your life, your daily interactions and things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it got worse when I got into college, because of course, then I was eating even worse, because at least when I was at home, I had some home cooked meals that weren't just processed, ding dongs and things like that. But once I got into college, it was a free for all, and it was like, oh, we can go to McDonald's or whatever, and
ramen, pizza,
yes, and you would just eat it, all of it, and you go couple that with probably too much drinking, and it got worse in college. It got really, really bad in college, and I again just pushed through it because everybody said it's just it's in your head, it's probably stress related. But it's funny because I did the timeline when I was going through my school for for the Functional Medicine Academy, and one of the things when I was asking my mom about when I was a baby, she had said that her milk had dried up overnight, and due to a death in the family, the stress had she's dried up, and every single formula that she gave me would cause me to projectile vomit and scream and pain. And back then they didn't have like a whole lot of options, I think she finally found something that was tolerable. So it makes me realize that even back then, I probably had some sort of, allergy or sensitivity, whether it was to dairy or gluten or whatever was in the formula, so it's been going on for a lot of my life.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you bring up the timeline, because, I think a lot of people, and this is very much supported by the conventional medicine process. But when we go in, it's like, what's been going on the last few days or maybe even couple of weeks. But if it gets too far in the past, that's not addressed as a potential cause or even as an important part to what we're experiencing today. Yes, but a big part of what we know from our training and from working with functional medicine doctors and things like that is it all matters from the time we are born, or even, what maybe was happening with our parents prior to our birth, right? So all of those things up until this moment are a big part of that. So it's really interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, it was very helpful. So
yeah. So and it's cool now that you have that knowledge that you can make that connection to what's happened.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you found this functional medicine doctor, and you were like, okay, I feel like this is the person that's going to help me. You go in, and tell me what it was like seeing this new doctor versus seeing a conventional medicine doctor.
Night and day difference. For one, I was there for longer than 15 minutes, meaning like with the doctor, not like waiting room time. But, the doctor walks in and, is talking to me about, okay, so what are the problems that you have going on? Let's kind of dive deeper into that. Whereas I felt like when I was seeing my traditional conventional medicine doctor, it was just kind of, they wanted to get you in and out so that they could get the next one in. And if they could think of some sort of medicine that might help you, they would just write you a prescription for it and hope that worked. The approach was very, very different. It was like, all right, we're going to run a whole panel of lab work on you to start with, just to make sure, because the fact that you went through breast cancer, you could have all kinds of things going on that we don't know about. I had my TSH run as a normal yearly lab done, right? Always normal. This doctor, however, was like, I'm pulling everything. I'm pulling your T3, your T4, your reverse T4. And my T3 was off. And so I was on that, like, I guess you would say pre-stages of having hypothyroidism, which might have explained also I had extreme exhaustion, things like that. So, he put me on some medication that was specific for the T3. And I mean, it's amazing the difference. He digs down and actually checks. And then he actually checks. I go to an oncologist every 6 months. And believe it or not, the only thing they do for me is basically fill my boobs, right? That's all they do. Occasionally they'll run some labs, but they're just looking at like my estrogen levels. He ran labs that were lots of tumor marker labs that are looking at specific tumor markers, so that we know, like, if some of these start going off, there might be, maybe I've got some issues going on, which is very, for one, it's encouraging to see, but it makes me feel better too, because honestly, I don't know if this cancer is going to come back somewhere else. I mean, we don't know. So yeah, it's very much a night and day difference. Yeah.
Wow. That is very interesting, that not only is your functional medicine doctor, looking at the various, panels, the blood work and all of that, but looking at the tumor markers and continually evaluating that to make sure, you're keeping an eye out. It's
yeah. And he recommends supplements based on what my needs are, so I don't take a lot of medicine per se. Like, the only drug that I have to take is that T3, but it's actually a compounded prescription. So it's a different approach, I mean, but he even checked for different things. Like, he took a look at my blood and checked to see, what did my red blood cells look like? What shape were they? How were they formed? How were they looking? He could also see that I had a lot of yeast in my body, off of that blood sample, which nobody had ever done before. And he's like, I'd like you to do a candida diet for about 6 weeks, which made sense, seeing that I had been a sugaraholic. I did have
feeding that yeast.
Yes. I had an overgrowth of yeast in my body. And strangely enough, here's the other thing that I had going on too, is I had psoriasis, basically patches. I'd get patches on my elbows and my knees, and they always just gave me a steroid. A regular doctor gave me a steroid. But when I went on this candida diet, it went away. It just went away. And now I know to listen to my body. And if I do not eat refined sugar at all anymore. I don't, if I can, I mean, I'm sure when I'm eating out, I'm sometimes eating it. But when I'm eating at home, I read all labels. I make sure there's no refined sugar. But like recently over the holidays, I was eating a lot more of what I call legal sugars. So honey, maple syrup, coconut sugar. But I noticed that it did still, I mean, those still ultimately raise your blood sugars. And sure enough, my psoriasis patches came back. And I could feel that I was getting some of those symptoms from the candida. And I was like,
there it is.
stop. So now I'm like, no, I'm taking it out. I'm kind of back on that candida diet and, trying to clear that back out again. So.
Wow. Well, good for you for, being so in tune with your body, listening and doing the things that work for you. Some people may not necessarily have to go to those lengths, or it may be something else that they have to do in order to improve their health. And that's the beauty of functional medicine. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. I'm listening to my body. I'm recognizing what fuels me. I'm recognizing what drains me. And I'm steering the ship according to the direction I need to go.
Exactly. It is not a one size fits all. And that's what I love about functional medicine. And it's also what I love about the coaching aspect of it too. I was coaching somebody and they're trying to stick to a really strict diet after the holidays. And so we're coaching through it. And her comment was, I'm just starving right now. I feel like I'm starving, and it was great to be able to walk through, like, you don't have to do like this particular whatever because you feel like you have to do a diet. Let's make it work for you so that you're not miserable, but it is still healthy and a function for you. And that's what I love about this is that you're not just saying, here's a diet I want you to do, and that's it, or here's what I want you to do, and there's no questions asked. Right. It's all about what works best for each individual person. And we're not all the same, and we're not all going to respond the same. Sometimes it takes trial and error to find what works best. And I think that that's where coaching really helps, is to help others discover what works best for them. Yeah. And help them to listen to their bodies and know that, okay, when I do this, it makes me feel a certain way. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. So it's really exciting. I love it. I pray all the time that more and more people get access to it and hear about it and know about it. Because I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah. Same. So I'm really curious how you are doing in terms of the breast cancer, how long it's been since your diagnosis, and kind of what how you're doing now.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I actually just had a follow-up with my oncologist. I am 3.5 years, cancer-free. I really, mostly what I've been doing, like I said, I refused to take the medication because it was causing me a lot of side effects. I was having a lot of hot flashes. It was causing me to have these horrific periods. It was also causing numbness in my extremities and my fingers, where my arms would go numb, my fingers would go numb, especially if I got cold. And if I got cold, it would really get bad. It was almost like was that Raynaud syndrome, where my lose like blood to my fingers. And I felt like I felt strongly it was all associated with the drug, because it all happened after the drug. And the doctor had said, no, it's not, that the drug wouldn't do that. You need to stay on it. So I just took myself off. Probably not always the best thing to do. So I clear things with doctors, but I took myself off and worked with a chiropractor to get, things kind of straightened out for me to help with the numbness in my arms. I started seeing a lymphatic massage therapist to help get my lymphatic system moving to clear out toxins. I started doing a lot of like detox type stuff with my
Mhm.
body to try to help pull out toxins. I was, I was doing some coffee enemas to help clean out my liver, you know, different things like that. I was going to go sit in a an infrared sauna.
Mhm.
I'd go a couple times a week and sit in there and try to sweat. I kept I've been keeping my diet super clean, whole foods. I pretty much shop the outside of the grocery store, and
Yes.
eat the outside of the grocery store. And exercising, like doing exercising that my body needs and
Yeah.
what I feel like it needs. So, I've started to incorporate things like Pilates and yoga also into my exercise routine. Whereas in the past, I was very much more of if I'm not pouring sweat, I'm not
Yeah.
exercising.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of these hardcore exercising, which was actually probably stressing my body more than what it needed. So now I'm doing a lot more like Pilates and yoga, and I'm still doing those other things, but a lot more lifting, strength training, anything I can do to strengthen my body and make it healthier and better. I try to eat as much organic as I can. Like I said, I've cleaned up all my cosmetics, my beauty products, everything. Even my exterminator is a natural exterminator. I'm not using anything with chemicals as much as I can around my
Right.
house.
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm not exposed to it everywhere on a normal
Right.
basis, but I do what I can to try to detox my body. Just to, and I drink lots and lots of water as a good detox to clean things out. But
Yeah.
I'm 3.5 years and I'm still good.
That's
So,
awesome. Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And I've been thinking about what you said about cleaning up cleaning up your environment. So you talked a lot about the importance of the nutritional factor and kind of cleaning up this environment,
right.
but everything around you has an effect. And,
Yes.
it may not, this one thing may not necessarily have a negative effect, or this other thing may not necessarily have an effect. But when you start to put it all together, I've heard multiple doctors and researchers talk about the amount of chemicals that a woman walks out of her house with on her body,
Yes.
simply from her
Yes.
morning routine and
Yes.
just what's in her home. And it's like a couple 200 to 300 different chemicals, and it's like, where is it all coming from? But when you kind of step back and you look at your cleaning products, your beauty products, your shampoos, your makeup, all of the variety of things, it's like it starts to stack, and now you have a whole host of chemicals versus
Yes.
one or two things. So, and clearly that's, something that you jumped right in, and we were like, I got to make a change. So
Yes.
do you have a resource that you used to help you figure out some healthy swaps, or how
Yeah.
did you go about doing that?
So it was quite it took a while to find all these things. I ended up finding in my own local town, we have a health food store that they actually, every item in their store, they personally vet and research and look into. So that is one place where I've been able to find certain products that I can see, okay, these are good. A lot of it came from, I'd find forums, other people who had similar experiences researching clean stuff, different, websites from, the EW,
EWG, yes.
EWG,
Yes. Love that app.
yes, the Think Dirty app, which is similar. There's another one, the Yucca, which is for food. I think that one's for food. And then there's another one, I think, I can't remember the name of it, but I would use those apps when I would go shopping, and scan the codes and see what was in them. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, no, don't want to do that. And I would try to buy the products that they had listed as less chemicals, less bad chemicals, I guess you could say. And I started researching on some people I'd found a lady who posted a lot of make your own recipes. Like, so for dish soap and even laundry detergent or cleaner, things like that. And it was simple, easy stuff that I could make all on my own. And it was clean.
Right.
Didn't have the toxic chemicals in it. And so it's kind of just searched.
Yeah.
But it took a long time.
I think for some people listening, they might be like, sounds like so much work. And
it can be very overwhelming.
Was that person a few years back, right? I was like, oh, I'm not about to make my own bathroom cleaner. Like, you are out of your mind. I'm not about to, not switch into the natural deodorant. Like, who wants to? And what I did was I just did one thing at a time. It was like, when I got to the end of it, I threw that, threw it away. And then when I went to buy something new, I bought the natural stuff, or I bought the cleaner, or I bought the, or sometimes I already had the ingredients to make my own cleaner. Cause it's just dish soap and vinegar or whatever, throw it together in a bottle, and that's it. So, it doesn't have to be all at once. And I really want to encourage the people that are listening to this that are like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. Nutrition, exercise, stress, all the things. It's like, okay, it doesn't have to be everything at once. One thing at a time.
I didn't start with everything. It was one thing at a time. And the first thing that I did was sugar. That was like the one thing I did was sugar. And it was just kind of from there, it was my own snowball effect. Nobody was telling me I had to change any of this stuff or anything like that. It had just became, I became hungry for knowing this information and learning more about it. So I started listening to, podcasts and doctors talk about, functional medicine doctors speak and things like that on these topics. And I would just listen, and I started researching because I wanted more and more and more to find out more of this stuff, because I thought, because you do it is very overwhelming because it's so much stuff. And then you wonder, how did we lived in all these chemicals and didn't know, any of this was so bad for us. And that a lot of these are what cause cancer. And I'm like, all of the stuff that I was the lotions that smell oh so good that I was lathering on my body. I don't want to throw out names and throw anybody under the bus, but I would lather those on every morning and sometimes at night. And I mean, they're full of these chemicals that are endocrine disruptors. And my cancer was linked to estrogen. And so obviously I had a disruption in my hormones. And so that's where it just started this whole thing inside of me that I had to know and I had to find out. But nobody has to go about it in that way. It can always be one small step at a time. Like, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, or it's not going to work. I mean, it's amazing how even just one small step can make a huge difference in how you feel, or, what happens with your body. It's like I said, when I took sugar out, a lot of my stomach issues went away, and I wasn't expecting that. That was not an expectation that I had. I was doing it more because I just had read that cancer really liked sugar and it liked to eat sugar. So I was like, well, I'm going to quit giving it food, and I will give it food it doesn't like to eat, which is better for my body. But the cancer won't want to eat that and grow bigger and stronger. And and it was amazing. The side effect of it was my stomach issues started going away. And it was like, oh, I could make a huge difference in this and not be miserable every day. but I didn't realize that I was miserable every day because I was feeding my body and fueling my body with things that were making it feel horrible. Like, had I known, I would have changed my diet years ago.
Right.
I would have changed this way back when I was in, high school or college. I would have tried to eat healthier, but I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And, but it would have saved me years of feeling like crap all the time. I mean, really, to be honest, that's what I felt like all the time.
Yeah.
So,
when you were talking about taking small steps, I just got this mental image of a full bucket of water. I've heard Dr. Carrie Jones talk about, how your bucket gets filled because you add food and the chemicals, and it just fills and fills and fills, and over the years at some point you're like, your bucket is just overflowing. And so I was thinking about it in the opposite manner. When you take one small step, it's like taking a little dropper, and putting the dropper in and taking a little bit of water out of your bucket and putting that dropper in and taking it out. And you don't see any change right away. Something is happening.
Yeah.
Because you see the water in the dropper, you see it out of the bucket now. And it's like little by little, you just keep doing over and over. You build that consistency. And before you know it, that water starts to go down, and it starts to go down a little bit more, and it starts to go down a little bit more. So I think that, when we do these things, when we take these small steps, we don't always immediately see this huge change. We know something's going on, right? Something's happening because we're doing the work. But, over time, when we do this with some consistency and give it some longevity, that's when we really see the true change and the true benefits of our efforts. So I think, that's a great takeaway from this conversation for anybody who is listening. Start small and build some consistency. Work with a coach. Get somebody who's on your side, who's there to support you. And you will see some improvement. You will see the benefits of the hard work that you're putting in.
Absolutely. You will. I mean, it comes.
It does.
So, yeah.
Well, this has been such a joy. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your story. If people want to connect with you, if they want to know more about you, or even just follow you on social media, where can they go?
Okay, but thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate that opportunity. You can always find me. I have a website, heathershealthyhabitscoaching.com. You can always reach me at, I also have my email is heathershealthyhabitscoaching@gmail.com. And I have a private Facebook group, Heather's Healthy Habits Coaching. So
you made it really easy. Heather's Healthy Habits. Go look her up, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again for your time and for sharing your story. I know people are going to walk away encouraged, and that's the whole point of Coach Krisler's Convos. For those of you who don't want to miss out on any of the convos, make sure you like and subscribe this episode. Share it with a friend who you love. And until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.